Welcome back to Talk of the Town on WHTC, Holland's Cool FM, on WHTC.com, and on the WHTC app for your smartphone. Once again, here's your host, Gary Stevens.
Welcome back to Talk of the Town for this Wednesday, August 19th. Third Wednesday of the month, which means this time we catch up with the West Michigan economy, looking at it with an emphasis on manufacturing and employment, with the Director of Supply Management Research with the Seidman College of Business, Grand Valley State University, Dr. Brian Long, on the other end of our Zoom connection this morning. Brian, hope all is well.
Indeed it is. It's a bright, somewhat sunny morning.
If you got a question for Brian, I think we can be able to handle it. 616-395-1450. Just let us do some maneuvering with the phones as we go along. Brian, first of all, I will bring up, before we talk about your report, what NBC had reported before we began this segment. President Trump is pausing a planned wave of tariffs that was set to hit Canada overnight. In a social media post, Mr. Trump said he had paused the 50% duties for 3 days because the two countries have a deal pending final documentation, but offered no specifics, suggesting that perhaps the Keystone XL pipeline may be awoken from the grave. Prime Minister Mark Carney said progress has been made, but there's still work to be done. The suspended tariffs would have affected roughly $20 billion in Canadian imports, including hockey sticks, certain building materials, liquors, and some apparel, according to the U.S. Trade Representative. But dealing with what affects us, a lot of the auto parts stuff and vice versa would have been affected as well. And some of the respondents to your monthly survey were a little concerned.
Particularly with the amount of business that we do with the auto industry, this trade agreement is extremely important. In fact, Michigan probably does more business across the bridge than any other country, with the possible exception of New York. The problem is our auto industry was set up during the era of free trade, and it was just assumed to continue, and it didn't, and that's caused a lot of consternation, particularly for our auto parts producers. Now,
in your response by the way, Dr. Long polls purchasing managers in the Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo markets to help comprise his monthly West Michigan Current Business Trends report. Tariffs is still something that's concerning many of your respondents overall, isn't it?
Very much so, because of the amount of things that we are importing these days. Needless to say, the economy has turned into a world economy, and we have some very small purchases that are sometimes made. The people lost track of their supply chains, and as a result, they're now figuring out that they're paying a hefty tariff on some things that were supposed to cost a whole bunch less. The other part is of course, this situation changes daily as these negotiations change, and as the president decides to use a particular tariff gun to get some country to conform. Unfortunately, this has been a major problem, but on the good side, during COVID, many of our people learned how to work around a lot of different barriers, and they have been able to work around some of these tariff barriers as well.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the last Current Business Trends report. Granted, as we are speaking now, you're about ready to do your canvassing for the September report for the last 2 weeks in August, so maybe some of the numbers it's not as relevant perhaps as it was before. But Brian, it seems as if there was still some growth, but we're starting to see some trends on the negative side with all of your indices. It wasn't as robust in July as it was in June. I'm not certain whether or not that's a trend or an outlier or what.
We don't know for sure because these statistics have varied month to month, and we are hoping that this month's statistics will continue to be positive. But as you indicated, we did drop off from where we were in June as far as the new orders index in particular. But again, on the average, we are positive, but that doesn't mean that there are some firms that are not hurting, and they indicated that in the survey as well.
One thing that I think maybe can be consistent as in going down is business confidence. That has gone down. It showed as a decline. The short-term business outlook declined, and maybe I'm assuming too much on this, Brian, but I would think that's something that has been steadily going down. Maybe since May when we started having the issues with the conflict in the Middle East.
Well, for some reason, our long-term confidence numbers are still holding up because I think we are an optimistic country and we're optimistic about the future. Short-term, unfortunately, we did back off a little bit, but I have to say that the index is still positive. During the tariff era, no, it had turned negative, and we are back to positive again because the companies have figured out how to work around a lot of these things, and they've figured out in some instances that they can actually get the seller to absorb the tariff, which, of course, is a major coup for them as well.
Yeah. If you have a question for Dr. Brian Long, Director of Supply Management Research, Seidman College of Business, Grand Valley State University, he'll be happy to take it at 616-395-1450. How concerned were the respondents, how concerned as an observer you are, about industrial inflation?
Industrial inflation has been a huge problem, but it's a recurring problem. We've had bouts of industrial inflation depending on what's going on in the marketplace. We're particularly concerned about the major commodities. And by that, I mean things like steel, copper, brass, even aluminum has skyrocketed as far as price is concerned, and this is a problem. How do we absorb this? And some of the respondents have indicated that they have been having some luck getting the prices passed along to the customers. Most of these customers, though, are not consumer customers. They are industrial customers. So the inflation in the manufacturing era 50, 60 years ago spilled right over into the consumer market in a matter of weeks. And that is not happening now in this global economy that we are in.
616-395-1450. Let's get to the phones. Good morning. You're on the line with Dr. Brian Long. Let me get you set up here. Hold on a second. Wrong button. Now I got you set up. Now you're on the air with Dr. Long. Go ahead, sir. Oops, we lost the call, unfortunately. It's one of those mornings, Brian. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But please call back, 616-395-1450. Reason why I was mentioning about industrial inflation as opposed to consumer inflation is that, let's put it this way, most of the customer, well, maybe I'm wrong, but most of the customer inflation stems from the industrial inflation as the suppliers have a higher overhead. They pass the costs along to the consumers. That's why I was bringing industrial inflation maybe more than consumer inflation.
And that is very much the case right now. But as I said, industrial inflation has actually surged at some points in time, and it didn't affect consumer inflation at all. We don't see it because, again, it's in the industrial market. And that's what's happening to us right now, too. And there's a whole bunch of things in the supply chain that can affect this, too. And we are seeing some impact, though. It's inevitable that it spills over to a certain extent into the inflation that we are experiencing right now, but not to the degree that you would think based on the respondents that I'm getting from our current surveys.
616-395-1450 if you have a question for Dr. Brian Long. Unemployment numbers. We're seeing them maybe less than a year ago, but certainly more than maybe 2 years ago. Or am I reading it wrong?
The unemployment numbers have definitely increased. We are up about a full percentage point for most of the reporting units of the west side of the state of Michigan. That was somewhat expected as a result of the increase in interest rates. The interest rates are supposed to slow the economy, and what they are watching very carefully, of course, is the unemployment rate, because they want to raise rates to slow the economy but not to increase the unemployment to an untenable level. And so far, the Fed seems to be fairly happy with the results that we are getting right now. Unemployment has not run away. Our survey has remained fairly positive as far as employment is concerned. We did get a few dips during the onset of the tariff era, but now we're pretty much back to somewhat normal, I guess, or break even, I guess I'm going to say. We are absolutely this past month at break even. The month before, we were actually quite positive. So industrial employment is still reasonably good.
All right. I'm going to ask you a question as an economist more than, Director of Supply Management Research at the Seidman College of Business, Grand Valley State University. As an economist, how do you take what I'm seeing here on my wire service here? Pending home sales nationwide fell more than expected in July as the National Association of Realtors says the number of homes under contract for sale dropped to its lowest level since this past January. The chief economist says the highest mortgage rates of the year hit in the middle of the summer, putting a damper on contract signings, and that home prices are at a record high, so houses are sitting on the market longer. You've been talking about home sales being a major factor in how we are, shall we say, in the financial boat we're in right now.
Well, that is how the Consumer Price Index is calculated. A lot of people don't realize this, but 40% of the Consumer Price Index is housing in one form or another. Monthly, of course, they survey rents, and the rents have actually stabilized, and the same has happened to the price of homes, too. But unfortunately, we've got some shortages in many areas as far as housing is concerned. Most of West Michigan is falling short as far as the number of housing units that we need. And that, of course, increases the price. The other problem that we have is the inputs. The lumber that we were getting from Canada had tariffs on it that we were just plain weren't expecting. And so that raises the cost of building. And other factors have raised the cost of building, too, such as the shortage of labor as far as the building industry is concerned.
Well, all right. One final thing, and I'll let you go a little bit early because of, again, we're putting this together, and some days are better than others. What do you see, perhaps before the end of the year, about where this economy is going? I know it's asking a crystal ball question when the ball is shrouded and clouded at best and busted at worst. But, because it's an off-year election year, how much politics will play on it. We still don't have any resolve of the situation in the Middle East in terms of how that's affecting the world economy. Do you get a sense that we're still basically bouncing from month to month, maybe flying blind in terms of our economy, not only the U.S. economy, but the world economy as well?
Well, to a certain extent, yes, but the world economy is positive, and the surveys of the national economy, both of the major surveys, remain positive. Not strong, but positive. And needless to say, we expect that's going to continue for the rest of the year, at least as far as the industrial market is concerned. What it will do for the economy, of course, is in part related, as you said, to the geopolitical situation. If this war in the Far East were suddenly over, we would have a great time. I should say the Middle East. Mm-hmm. We would have a great set of numbers starting to come in because we would get that bounce that you expect from optimism or whatever. Needless to say, the inflation rate would fall, but it's not going to fall at a rapid rate like some people think because we've got too many prices baked in right now at the present level. We can expect that unemployment, as I said, will probably remain modestly positive in West Michigan, but at the same time, we can expect the prices at the consumer level to level off a little bit, but we're still going to close the year out at somewhere near about 3% inflation, which is still way ahead of where the Fed expects. And the rumor now is that the Fed is probably going to bump interest rates up at least one notch before the end of the year.
And we'll see how the White House feels about that, if it does exactly happen that way. If you want more information about what Dr. Long does as the Director of Supply Management Research with the Seidman College of Business at Grand Valley State University, there is a link, and it's rather lengthy, so we'll put the link to those survey reports, not only the most recent, but other ones as well, in the description of the podcast that we'll put up on our webpage at WHTC.com a little after 11 o'clock this morning. Dr. Brian Long, as always, thank you very much for joining us today on Talk of the Town, passing on your expertise and putting up with our little juggling here. We wish you and your family well, and if all goes well, and hopefully we'll do this well, we'll get this going here in the month of September. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I'll look forward to September as well.
Thank you very much, Dr. Brian Long, on WHTC, Holland's Cool FM.
You've been listening to Talk of the Town on WHTC, Holland's Cool FM, on WHTC.com, and on the WHTC app for your smartphone.
We want to thank Allegan County Clerk and Register of Deeds Bob Janetsky and Dr. Brian Long of Grand Valley State University for joining us today on Talk of the Town. The segments have been or will be uploaded to our webpage at WHTC.com in the podcast tab under Talk of the Town. You can listen or download at your convenience for free. Thanks to Brian Spencer, What's New Around Holland. Most importantly, thanks to all of you for listening and being a part of our program today. Tomorrow on WHTC's Talk of the Town, we should be joined by Dr. Ralph Hurlwimmer to answer your medical questions along with Holland City Councilman Tim Freeman. Following NBC News with Michael Kastner, it will be Lindsay Lawrence's Evergreen Commons Report. For Brian Spencer, I'm Gary Stevens. Thanks for listening to Talk of the Town. Have a good day. Let's do this all again tomorrow.